Bonjour classe, c'est Madame Metzger et aujourd'hui on va discuter le subjonctif. So up to this point, we have not used the subjunctive at all because there are ways to avoid it. You can say the same thing that you want to say, express what you want to express by avoiding the subjunctive. But it is time. It's time to learn how to do it. And really, once you sink your teeth into it and you've used it for a good week or so, you feel pretty good with the subjunctive. So we're going to get started. Here we go. Voila. Qu'est-ce que c'est le subjonctif? What is it exactly? Well, it's actually part of present tense. There are 3 present tense moods. So the first is the indicative, what you think normally of present tense, just facts, reality, somebody is doing something. The example here is we do our homework. We could also translate that to we do our homework or we are doing our homework. Doesn't matter which way, it's indicative. And in French, there's only one way to do that. Nous faisons nos devoirs. The second part of present tense, the second present tense mood, is the imperative. Those are your commands or your suggestions, like let's do our homework. Faisons nos devoirs. We could also make that a command in the to form, fais tes devoirs, or the vous form, faites vos devoirs. Okay. And the third mood of present tense is the subjunctive. So we're actually going to be working on, let me go back, the present tense subjunctive. They actually have the subjunctive for all the tenses, but we're only going to work on the present tense subjunctive. So when do we use this? Well, if the first tense is facts and reality, the second is commands and suggestions. All that we have left are wishes, desires, necessities, emotions, opinions, and doubts. Things that aren't factually in reality taking place. It's more of something that you wish or want or would like to happen. It is necessary that you do something. I am sad that you are or are not doing something. And so after these expressions of wishes and desires and necessities, opinions, doubts, we can't just use plain old present tense. We need to use the subjunctive. So because you need to set up the subjunctive, there is always a que expression in front of it. If you listened in the last slide, my examples were, he is sad that something is happening. I wish that something is going on. I doubt that something is going on. So we have these expressions on the front, and then the word that, which is que. Let me get my little pointer here, which is que. And then you have your subject and your subjunctive. So, for example, il faut que je fasse mes devoirs means, literally, it is a must that I do my homework. Now, we don't say things like that in English. In English, we would simply say, I must do my homework. That's how we've gotten around using subjunctive. We simply said, je dois faire mes devoirs. But now we can use the subjunctive with a subjunctive phrase at the beginning, il faut que, new subject and subjunctive following. All right. It will make more sense the more we practice it. So, when do you use it? Quand est-ce que j'utilise le subjonctif? Bon, après des expressions. Il y a 4 expressions qu'on utilise tout le temps. D'abord, il faut que, ça veut dire one must. Il ne faut pas que, the opposé, n'est-ce pas? One must not. Il est nécessaire que, it is necessary that. Il vaut mieux que, it is better that. Again, after the word that, you would have a new subject and the subjunctive. We are also going to use the subjunctive after expressions of emotions or It could be any adjective. Here are a few, but it could be any adjective or emotion, and then a que, and then we would use the subjunctive. So for example, happiness. Content and heureux both mean happy. The example, je suis content qu'il fasse ses devoirs. Je suis heureux que. Of course, we would change our content to contente and add an E if I was a female, and heureux to heureuse if I was a female. So adjectives do need to agree in number and gender. I know you know that though. All right, angry. Fâché is angry and furieux, furious. So our examples, tu es fâché qu'il fasse de la moto. Regret, either regretting something or being sorry about something. So we have être désolé is to be sorry. Répétez, il est désolé qu'il ne les fasse pas. He is sorry that he's not doing them. Triste. Triste veut dire sad. By the way, if you don't know what these mean, you should be writing them in your notes. So, il est triste que, he is sad that. C'est dommage que, that means it's a shame that somebody is doing something or somebody is not doing something. C'est dommage is a great expression you should learn. It's a shame. Répétez, c'est dommage. And lastly, regretter, il regrette que. All right, d'accord. We have some more adjectives that we want to remind you of. Étonné is to be shocked and surpris, surprised. Examples, nous sommes étonnés qu'il pleuve. We are shocked that it's raining. Nous sommes surpris que. Disappointment, our adjective for disappointed is déçu. Vous êtes déçu qu'il pleuve? Are you disappointed that it's raining? Fear. Avoir peur is to be afraid, and être inquiet is to be worried. Ils ont peur que je fasse de la moto. They are afraid that I'm riding a motorcycle. Ils sont inquiets que. They are worried that somebody is doing something. Anytime you want to say that somebody is wishing, liking better, asking that somebody does something, wanting that somebody does something, preferring, wishing, souhaiter, wishing that somebody would do something, vouloir, wanting them to, or vouloir bien, really wanting them to do something. Again, you need that que, new subject, and subjunctive. Our example here is, j'aimerais que nous fassions un voyage. I would like for us to take a trip. Okay. Now, one verb that you would think would fall into this category would be to hope, because it's not reality. You're just hoping. Espérer means to hope. Répétez, espérer. But this is our grammar exception. We never use the subjunctive after an expression with espérer. We simply use the indicative or regular present tense. Tricky. So, how do I form it? Now I kind of get an idea of when I need to use it. Only after an expression of doubt, wishing, wanting, necessity, emotion. We need a que, we need a new subject, and then we need subjunctive. But how do I form the subjunctive? Well, pour la plupart des verbes, c'est assez facile. Actually, for most of our verbs, it's rather easy. For all of our er, and irregular verbs, it's the same way. Isn't that wonderful? Let me say that again. For all of our ERs, IRs, irregular IRs, and RE verbs. So for all of those regulars, we conjugate it the same exact way. And that is by using the il singular stem. Getting stem means you're going to get rid of the and te, laisse tomber le and te, and then you're going to add these subjunctive endings. Es, eons, eez, and te. Kind of a mix of imperfect right here and regular ER verbs here. Nonetheless, you need to memorize those as subjunctive endings. Let's do that again. Es, eons, eez, and te. Why the ill plural stem? Well, sometimes we have boot verbs or different kind of like ending verbs, and so it's not the new stem, it's the ill plural stem that will help you to make sure you're getting them all correct. So let's look at some examples. So for a regular IR verb like finir, on laisse tomber le ENT, we have our stem finis, and then we ajoute ES, IONS, IEZ, ENT. Voila, we've added those on. Répétez. Que je finisse. Que tu finisses. We're not going to hear the ES. Que qu'il finisse. Que nous finissions. Que vous finissiez. Qu'il finisse. Voila, regular IR verb. Let's look at an irregular IR like dormir, regular ER like parler, and a regular RE like vendre. For all of these, as you can see, the underlined il pluriel stems. Dormir, il dorm, take off the ENT, you're left with the stem dorm. Parler, il pluriel parle, take off the ENT, you're left with the stem parle. Vendre is new, not new, il pluriel vend. Take the silent E and T off and you've got vend. So those are our stems. And then again, over and over again, and yet they're highlighted, S, IONS, IEZ, ENT. And again, we continue not to pronounce an ENT. Let's just do the dormir. Que je dorme, répétez. Que tu dormes, qu'il dorme, que nous dormions, que vous dormiez, qu'il dorme. Excellent. Now, what about those verbs that have like a double L or T inside the boot for present tense, or an accent grave inside the boot in present tense, or change the Y to an I inside the boot for present tense? Those are called our stem changers. Well, for the subjunctive, we are going to continue to make them boot verbs and do the stem change inside the boot as normal. And instead of adding regular present tense endings, we add our subjunctive endings. That's it. So as you can see the example with nettoyer, répétez que je nettoie, que nous nettoie, que il nettoie, que nous nettoyons, no, que nous nettoyions, que vous nettoyiez, qu'il nettoie. Voila. Jeter is going to sound the same. You just have a double T inside the boot. Okay, next we have faire, which means to do or make, pouvoir, to be able to, and savoir, to know facts, information, and how to do something. If you don't know what those mean, you better write those down, but hopefully you do. So for these three verbs, we just have to memorize an irregular stem for them, and we're going to add on again the same endings. So faire, we're going to memorize the stem fasse. We saw this a lot in my beginning examples. So répétez, que je fasse, que tu fasses, qu'il fasse, que nous fassions, que vous fassiez, qu'il fasse. Faire, to do or to make, irregular stem fasse. Pouvoir, to be able to, its irregular stem is puisse, puisse. And so you just use puisse and add in your endings, es, ions, iuz, ent. Savoir, to know facts, information, how to do something, its irregular stem is sache, sache. Add your endings, es, ions, iuz, ent. Excellent. So far, every ending has been exactly the same. Es, ions, iuz, ent. This is our first group that has irregular stems. Again, faire fasse, pouvoir puisse, savoir sache. So not so bad so far. This next group, the rules apply to all of our prendre verbs, so prendre, apprendre, comprendre. All of our venir verbs, so venir, devenir, revenir, tenir, appartenir, etc., etc. And verbs ending in OIR, like voir, and OIRE, like boire. All of these verbs fall into the same category, and they are a little bit different. Inside the boot, we're going to use the il plural stem. So for prendre, the ill plural stem has a double N, P-R-E-N-N. For venir, it's inside the boot, so it has the VN. And for boire, inside its boot, it has boive. So we're going to use that stem inside the boot, meaning for the je, tu, il, and il pluriel, we have that as our stem. Now, outside of the boot, meaning the nu and vu that are not inside, they are outside the boot, we're actually going to use the nu stem. Kind of makes sense because il pluriel is inside the boot, so they all are il pluriel. Nu stem is outside of the boot, so the two that are outside share the same nu stem, which is ven for venir, pren, one N for prendre, and bouvre for boire. Inside the boot, il pluriel stem. Outside the boot, nu stem. Same endings. S, ooh, that should be black. E-O-N-S, E-O-Z, and te. So while we do make these boot verbs, the same endings are happening, which is wonderful. Once you've got those endings memorized, you are good to go. Once again, S, E-O-N-S, E-O-Z, and te. So in your note packet, the next thing we're going to do is simply write some of these stems. So you have a boot. Inside, write the ill plural stem for voir, which is voi, V-O-I. Croire is croix, C-R-O-I. Boire is boive, like we just saw on the last slide, B-O-I-V-E. Oops, wrong way. All right, prendre, inside the boot, you're going to write pren, P-R-E-N-N. Apprenne, A-P-P-R-E-N-N. Comprenn, C-O-M-P-R-E-N-N. You're going to write venirs, your il plural stem somewhere in the boot, which is VN with the double N. You can write TN for tenir. You can write devien for devenir, etc. Okay, so our boot should be filled with all of our il plural stems. And then out here, we're going to write our new stems. So we've got pren, P-R-E-N, appren, A-P-P-R-E-N, compren. We've got ten, deven, reven, and ven over here in this area with the new stem. And then we've got voy, V-O-Y. V-O-Y should be written over here. Croy, C-R-O-Y. C-R-O-Y. And boire is a bouve, B-U-V. Rewind that if I went too fast. And this little visual should help you, or at least you can look at it quickly when you need to. Lastly, there are 5 irregulars, only 5 that are totally irregular, and they don't continue to have the same endings, although the first 2 do. If you look at the slide, E-S, E-O-N-S, E-Z, E-N-T, E-O-N-S, E-Z, E-N-T. So these first 2 do, but they are boot verbs, and they're quite different. And so just make sure that you are looking at your notes as you're working on these. For aller, we have the word ill inside the boot. Que j'aille, que tu ailles, qu'il aille. Remember the ILL is y. Que nous allions, que vous alliez, qu'ils aillent. Valoir, you might need to write this down. It means to be worth. Valoir means to be worth. It has valor. I don't know if that helps you. All right, so kind of like up here, it's very similar. We have the word ill inside the boot, that y going on, but on the outside we do not. It's just val, like the beginning of the infinitive, just like all, the beginning of aller. All right, répétez. Que je vais, que tu vas, qu'il va, que nous valions, que vous valiez, qu'il veille. Okay, great. Our last three irregulars, and then this is it. Every verb you know how to do at this point is vouloir, to want. Inside, again, we have the ill-looking thing going on, and a VEU, like present tense, like present tense, we have the EUs going on inside the boot, and then we have the ill going on. If you look at our endings, E, ES, EONS, EZ, ENT, we still have subjunctive endings. It's only the last two that don't. And outside, it looks more like the infinitive, voul, regular endings. Répétez. Que je vouille. Que tu vouilles. Qu'il vouille. Que nous voulions. Que vous vouliez. Qu'il vouille. Excellent. Okay, the last two are the only two, avoir and et, that do not have the same subjunctive endings. They differ a bit. Let's look at avoir. Inside our boot, we have AI going on as like a stem, which is very different. And then we have es, te. Where'd this te come from? Nobody knows, but that's what it is. And then we don't have an EONS and an EZ. Instead, we have AY and ONS and EZ. And then back to our AI inside the boot, ENT. Très différent. Répétez. Que j'ai, que tu aies, qu'il ait, que nous ayons, que vous ayez, qu'ils aient. Être, to be, right? If you look at this and you're familiar with the irregular command forms of et, looks like we're using command forms here. It begins with S's. Inside the boot, we have wa going on, and outside we have soy. And we don't have E's for our new and vu. And we don't have E's, ES's, or E's here either. So, très différent. So, that I am. He is disappointed that I am here. Il est déçu que je sois ici. All right, répétez. Que je sois. Que tu sois. Qu'il soit. Que nous soyons. Que vous soyez. Qu'il soit. That concludes the subjunctive. That's it. We're going to watch this video every time you're home and you can't join us for Google Meets to hear it, to have it explained. Try not to zone out. Try to really concentrate and think about the endings, think about the stems, think about what is happening. And of course, use your notes a ton, slowly and carefully as you try to work through the subjunctive. All right. Well, hope this helps you. Bonne journée tout le monde. Bonne journée. Au revoir.